You ever look at your dog or a chimp at the zoo and just wonder, what is going on in there? Forever, we've been asking this one tantalizing question. Could they learn to talk if we just taught them how? But the scientific journey to answer that question, it ends up revealing a lot less about animals and a whole lot more about this strange, powerful, and uniquely human thing we call language. So, this was the big one. Can an ape learn to talk? This was the question that completely captivated researchers for decades. The idea was pretty simple, right? If we can teach our closest living relative, an ape, to use human language, well then the gap between us isn't some massive chasm. It's just a small step. And honestly, this became one of the most exciting quests in modern science.
And for a while there, it really seemed like they were succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. I mean, the 1970s were just full of these incredible headlines about apes who could talk using sign language. And the results? They seemed to be completely rewriting what it meant to be human.
And the claims being made were just audacious. We're not just talking about an ape asking for a banana here. We are talking about deception, humor, arguments. Apes, like the famous gorilla Koko, were reportedly using language for stuff we thought was ours alone. Telling jokes, even telling lies. It was an absolutely breathtaking possibility. I mean, just look at this list of achievements. It was staggering. They were saying apes had vocabularies of hundreds of signs. They were supposedly inventing new words, like signing waterbird for a swan. They seemed to be forming sentences, holding actual conversations, and in one case, even teaching sign language to another, younger ape. The line between human and animal felt like it was blurring right before our very eyes.
But just as the public's fascination was hitting its peak, a scientific backlash started brewing. Other researchers began to look at all this data a lot more critically, and the beautiful story of the talking ape, well, it started to fall apart under some really rigorous scrutiny.
The big turning point came from a chimp with a very, very ironic name, Nim Chimpsky. It was a little jab at the linguist Noam Chomsky, who is a huge skeptic of this whole thing. A project led by a psychologist, H.S. Terrace, set out to videotape every single moment of Nim's language learning. They were trying to prove the skeptics wrong. But what they found did the exact opposite.
They uncovered a huge problem, something called the clever hands effect. It's named after this horse back in the early 1900s that could supposedly do math. Well, it turned out Hans wasn't a math genius. He was a body language genius. He was just an expert at reading the tiny unconscious cues from his trainer, who'd tense up as Hans route closer to the right answer. And the researchers realized they were doing the same thing. They were accidentally cueing the apes to make the right signs. And tied right into that was our own human bias, this thing called the anthropomorphic fallacy. We want to see human intelligence in animals. So when an ape signed drink but pointed to its ear instead of its mouth, researchers were really quick to say, oh, it's a clever joke. But the more skeptical view, and probably the right one, it was just a mistake. We were projecting our own complex minds onto theirs. The difference becomes so clear when you put them side by side with a human child. On the left, you see a child's sentences. They're creative, they're novel, they already follow rules of grammar. On the right, Nim's signs aren't conversations. They're just repetitive demands. He strings words together, give orange me, give orange, but there's no underlying structure, no grammar. It's just a tool to get things, not a system for expressing new ideas.
And this was the devastating conclusion from H.S. Terrace himself. After painstakingly analyzing thousands of hours of video, he concluded that Nim, and by extension probably all the other talking apes, never actually acquired grammar. All they had learned was a very clever trick to get rewards. They hadn't learned language.
Okay, so if apes can't learn it, what exactly is it? What is this secret ingredient that makes human language so profoundly different from any other communication system on the entire planet? Well, the answer is way stranger and more elegant than you might think.
All right, take a look at this sentence. Seems simple enough, right? It's something any of us could say without a second thought. But hidden inside this very ordinary sentence is the entire magic trick of human language. The sentence is ambiguous. Who has the telescope, me or the kids? It could mean I used a telescope to see the kids, or it could mean I saw kids who were using a telescope themselves. Now, think about it. From a purely communication standpoint, that's inefficient. Animal signals are all about being clear and unambiguous. So why is our language full of these potential mix-ups?
The answer is this incredible thing called structural dependency. What it means is that our brains don't just process words in a simple line, one after another. we automatically, unconsciously, build a complex, invisible tree structure. It's how you know that in a sentence like, "The cat that the dogs chased ran away," that it was the cat who ran, not the dogs. Your brain just calculates that hierarchical relationship no matter how far apart the words are. Apes never showed a hint of this ability. This is the real essence of human grammar.
So we've established what makes our language unique. But that just opens up an even deeper mystery. When did this incredible ability actually show up in our evolutionary story?
New research, this time from the world of genomics, gives us a date that is stunningly precise and surprisingly ancient. The evidence is pointing to the fact that the biological capacity for language must have been in place at least 135,000 years ago. The logic behind this is actually super elegant. Think about it like this. Every single human society on Earth has complex language, and we all descend from a common ancestral population in Africa. Well, geneticists have figured out when the earliest split in that human family tree happened, the moment that separated the ancestors of the Khoisan peoples from everybody else. That split was about 135,000 years ago. So for every group to have language today, our common ancestor must have had it before they split up.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating. That genetic evidence for language capacity, 135,000 years ago, seems to predate the widespread archaeological evidence for symbolic behavior, things like art, beads, complex burials. That stuff doesn't show up in a big way until later. So it's like the hardware for language was installed in our brains tens of thousands of years before we really started using it for culture as we know it.
And that creates a really profound puzzle. What does this lag mean? If language wasn't originally for communication in the way we think of it, for art, for culture, for complex social stuff, then what on earth was it for? Did our most defining trait actually evolve for a completely different purpose?
And that leads us to the final, great mystery in the science of language. It's a question about its fundamental purpose. Was language born from our need to talk to each other, or was it born from our need to think to ourselves?
There are basically two big opposing views here. The social theory is the one that feels intuitive, right? It says language evolved slowly, step by step, because better communication gave our ancestors a survival advantage. It's an external tool for connecting with others. But the cognitive theory, which is often tied to Chomsky, suggests this radical alternative. It says language might have emerged suddenly, from a single mutation, and not for talking, but as an internal system for organizing our thoughts. In this view, our ability to talk to each other is just a happy accident, a byproduct of our ability to think clearly.
So our quest to see if animals can talk has led us right back to this fundamental mystery about ourselves. And it leaves us with a much more profound question. Is language the bridge that connects us to other people, or is it the very architecture of our own minds? Is it what we say, or is it what we think?